I would like to call to order a meeting of the Board of Directors of New York City Municipal Water Finance Authority. Deborah, could you please go through the roll call?
Melanie Herta.
Olga Chernat from Herta.
Max Von Molly.
Here.
Lisa Sager.
Robert L. Byrne for Commissioner Sagos.
Jacques Sheehan.
Jackie Gold for Jacques Sheehan.
Vincent Sapienza.
Joe Murin for Vincent Sapienza.
Mark Shaw.
Yes.
And Gavin Clark.
Thank you, Deborah. So our first order of business is approval of minutes of the board meeting on May 31st, 2018. Could I please have a motion and a second to discuss the proposed resolution?
So moved.
Second.
The minutes of the meeting from May 31st have been circulated and are included in your packets. Are there any comments or changes? Hearing none, is there any opposition to the proposed resolution to approve the minutes? Since there are no objections, the minutes are approved. Moving on, the second item on the agenda is approval of supplemental resolution number 136, authorizing the issuance of fiscal 2019 Series 1 second general resolution water and sewer system bonds to be issued to New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. So could I have a motion and a second to discuss this
So moved.
resolution? Thank you. This resolution has been recommended by the Finance Committee. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Is there any opposition to adopting this resolution? None. Hearing no objections, the resolution is approved. We have two other related matters. One is approval of extension of bond council contract. Could I have a motion and a second to discuss this proposed
So
resolution?
moved.
Should I leave? I think I should.
Okay. Thank you, Albert. So the reason Albert left, his representative, he serves as our bond counsel. So this extension relates to his work that he does for the authority. What we asking the board to do here is to approve ORIC's contract for us for bond counsel services, just to cover this transaction series, fiscal 2019 Series 1 bonds. As we've talked before, we are working on a request for proposals, and we're hoping that we will bring our recommendations to the board soon, but we're not ready just yet. And just with any transaction, we need their services. And so we're asking you to approve resolution extending their contract to cover the Series 1 transaction. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. Well, are there any objections? Also none. A similar matter is approval and extension of disclosure council contract. Could I have a motion and second to discuss the proposed resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Again, it's the same process, request for proposals for bond counsel and other related counsel work for our debt program. Because we're not ready with our recommendations based on that process, we're asking the board to extend the authority's contract at the current rates with Nixon, and they will be serving as the authority's disclosure counsel for purposes of the fiscal 2019 Series 1 issuance. Are there any questions or comments?
Is this the same rate that they've been paid all along?
It is the same rate. So both the bond counsel work and the disclosure counsel work are the same rate as was as specified in the original contract.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to the resolution? Okay, hearing none, the resolution is approved. So we have a final item on the agenda, and this is report of executive director. This is a matter that just came up recently. Our trustee, through an administrative error, made a debt service payment on certain bonds 1 business day late. We advising you of this because we are required to file a notice about this on electronic municipal market access disclosure system. So again, this is trustee error. The authority had all the funds that to make the payment, so we've done what we were required to do. This notice that should be in your folder, the last item, this just goes into more detail about the specifics of what happened. The important thing is that the payment has been made, and further, the trustee also made extra payment of extra interest to cover the delayed payment. And so we feel that, outside of the filing of the notice, this matter has been substantially resolved. But we take this very seriously. We have been in ongoing discussions with the trustee to ensure that such error is never repeated in the future.
A question, did the trustee realize this error on their own, or was it pointed out to them?
The trustee, and that's a good question, the trustee did realize the error, and they brought this to our attention. No bondholders have filed any claims against the trustee or the authority. So the trustee proactively made a payment, or is working to make a payment for the delayed, to cover the delay in debt service payment.
And have the bondholders been notified?
So this notice that you have in your packets, that's a draft of the notice that will be filed to notify the bondholders. Yep.
But the bondholders have received the money. I mean, it's been deposited.
Right, so the payment was made 1 business day late. That's the fact around it. And it was just, one series of bonds. They didn't have correct record of QSIPs and the rates. And so their internal control system prevented from the payment to go out because of that error.
How do we know that they can correct it? Have they identified sufficiently the error?
Yes, so at the end of the business day, they went through all, so this was a part of larger debt service payment. And at the end of the day, they went through reconciliation of all of our debt service accounts. They noticed that there are monies in one of the accounts that should have went down and didn't, researched it, realized what happened, flagged it for us. We worked with them to compensate the bondholders for the delayed payment through the extra interest. This is the notice.
Olga, do you want to point out, this is, they're newly appointed trustees.
Right.
So they took over for an old trustee. So this was the first significant debt service payment that they had to make.
So they identified it manually, though? There wasn't...
It wasn't, you're right, it was identified manually. The internal control system that prevented the payment from going out, that was an automatic control. But as Jeff was saying, this is a trustee we hired in January of this year. The data set they have been working with was inherited from their predecessor, and while they were working through review of that data, they haven't fully completed it before the payment.
And that extra interest, does that come out of the trustees' funds?
That's correct. Because it was their error, they're covering the cost of it.
And they'll be able to make the next payment timely.
So they are making payments on us every month on our variable rate portfolio, and there has been no issues with that. This was a first payment on our fixed rate bonds of principal and interest. So it was a very large payment, all done on the same date. And just one series of bonds didn't get paid on time. And they are going to report to us when their review is complete and the results of that review. And the next large debt service payment is not until 6 months away from now on December 15th. And of course, we will be in touch with them early on to ensure that, we're prepared to handle it appropriately.
Thank you.
I'm assuming this in no way affects the ratings of the bonds?
It shouldn't. The answer, it shouldn't, because the authority had all the funds and was ready to make a payment, and it was an administrative problem. The other thing maybe worth noting is that we, because we were working, the authority has been working with on a couple of transactions when this came up, and we were able to successfully work through the issue with the banks that provide liquidity and extend the liquidity contract. So there seems to be sufficient understanding that it's not it's not a payment delay caused by the authority, but it was a payment delay caused by the trustee, and people understand that however serious and unfortunate this matter is, it happens sometimes, and the important thing right now is to make sure that the processes of trustee are working the way they're supposed to work, and does not repeat in the future. So there is no action on this item. This is just, just let you know that unfortunately this happened, and we're working to correct and ensure that there's no. Any questions, comments? Right, well then, I think it is, since there is no, is there any further business? Since there is no further business, could I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.